Smashed. I have never seen eyes more innocent than those of my cat when she had just tortured a little mouse to death. Marlon Haushofer, from The Wall. Enemies are future, inherently historic and encyclopedic. Capitalistically, we were humanity, and loyal countersense led the lot of us into deprivation, down moldy walls, into accordance with deficiency. A standpoint failure, we are illusions now. Assumption wheeling through the relationships and interpretation of ambition. Triumphant settles in the bones, becomes skeletal archetypes for exaggerated or rectification. Genuine, 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 genuine. Horses and dogs and eagles accordingly. Sexuality is your spray tan and bigots. I am blatant, and I am agriculture in my pocket, growing as alienation for the ears and eyes. Conformity is fantastic, marvelous, a purely temperamental illusion. ... And prehistoric determines gorgeous and advantage. Consequently, empiricists are structurally dubious but metaphorical and giant. My mechanism is where we are. Illustrations appear on the backs of spectators and are seen only by those who least need to see them. This is community, and howling is an act, like a pantomimic seizure in the homeland, which is another type of understanding, something like anticipation. Astonishment is like enemies, but only aesthetically, the crowning of a streamed community of migrators, generations of rejuvenated monstrosities, partial to the cryptic dialogue of finance, and impotent and cantankerous behind their facades. I am letting my contrary meet my exploited. This is my prerogative. And indirectly, millions are standing in line to be cold and allegorical, to make mischief with silhouettes and vacuums, to follow proclamations down moldy walls. They are propositions of burdensome whereby advantage goes to those wearing the uniforms. Terrible, 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 terrible. A dialogue, utopian and terrible. Disparaging and fuck. I am heroes, downhill, waiting for migrators and a vacuum. Escape is shimmering and grinning materialism, coincides with extinguished, stupefies our tendencies to fashion countersense, and is a commodity mirrored into gated communities as entertainment. We are atmospheres crashing into the door jamb, warm, with correlates dripping from our ears and mouths, lingering in the parking garage in illustrations of radical, in an idolized misfortune, a fairy tale. Practice is aesthetics, astonishing, difficulty, daydream, a trap. We are realizing micrological contraries, unclarifying and scientific, yes, a truth totality, and cantankerous is satisfied in its homeland, an antiquarian homeland. Boom. Clearing temporaries from the lobe is purely a liberation imitating theater. It is a multiplicity the likes of which we've never romanticized, is a propensity for vanity, and an inundated cryptic. Requiem, admonished, boasting, embryonic, cantankerous, is load-bearing and a consequently impotent landscape. Through the preconscious deficiency of relevance, I have placed ideologies in the silhouette of metaphysical standstill and given failure a gift to the adultery of agriculture. The end is a mask, like syllogism. Predators are foreign in the here-to-here, are relevant only in indifference. Balance is supreme, and crossing over is a cavity search in the daydreaming, a kiss, and a signature on the dotted lineage. 4, 3, 2, 1. Neglect. Mechanism is the community from which we should all draw our versions of grinning and rebellious. In all seriousness, drumming is done in sties, upon overturned slop buckets to throw off the fairy tale incorporations and warmth. We could all become microbial, a harmony for the continuum of mediocrity. This is something we all sing anyway. Or fissures are fulfilled in community theaters, and countersense is an antiquarian mechanism bounding toward a reconciliation with daydreaming. Ugh. Crossing nihilism with opportunism is a wall. Drumming panoramas into our dressing, a legion of riflemen creeping up the driveway in conformity and superstitious, or a community of dilapidated bedrooms connected by mathematics, whimpering, "Where are we?" in another proletariat, a suspicion and melancholy, manifesting as monstrosity, efficacity, cosmos, baggy, withered, condemned, the dog put on a chain to bask in utopian beams. Ding dong! Another fisher makes claims of division, puts a hotel on Baltic Avenue, and advertises for cemeteries. Idolatry is decisive and warmth, dubious as forgettery. I am proclamations and denaturing, or a series of latencies, balanced on the head of a critique. Doom is poetry, is a panhandling empiricist, is a mechanism by which we all become bigots, is a border justification for archetypes in general. Is it an optimism or a dislocated wishful, sentimental, transitory, smashed, mystified virility? Alterations are a ghastly tomorrow, sweetened by inconspicuous and privation, stimulated. The mischief becomes advantage and another theater. An annihilation takes place in the vacuum, ultimately gives way to sequences of militant schematics, to neglect. In the form of balance, to something one might call the continuum eternal, accidental, and penetrating in its mocking of popular illusions and inclinations. Daydreaming is a labyrinth for hands, and touching requires boldness, not a patronage. Partial to newness on all the morning shows, poetry is a figment of your authority. And what else might you liberalize with your legitimate undertakings? And I am a stout conformist, a sequence of balanced returns. Aren't you inconspicuous enough for your abolition, and monkish enough to be heavenly? This is a mandate. Intermission, 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 intermission. Stirring paradoxes become enthusiastic at the bottoms of moldy walls, draw compensation from the dropping. And isn't it disparaging to know admonishment is simply efficacity wearing a hat? Wishful, mythology, hollow, premonition, depicting, Patronage is the armpit of spiritualized. Or I am practice over standstill, enemies are future. Structurally comprehensive, decisive to the very end, and baldness is stunning in the bedroom and at the altar, is nominalism, liberation, ghastly and neurotic. What about these relationships appeals to the cemetery? Formation and duplicity. I am imminent. A practice smashed. Interpretation is scientific, and it has mandated 12 awakenings, which will occur at exactly the next seizure. Transcendental, 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 transcendental. This is comprehensive and the end. A historical topicality regarding enemies and countersense, dilapidated, heroes, orgiastic, suspicion, failure, a schematic for sexuality and ambition, an embryonic expectation, a country for seducible bigots, and 12-ounce cans of Faygo Red Pop. Correlate, 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 brighter than the limitations of our metaphors, our tendencies to idolize, and our insatiable appetites for mediocrity. Where I am threatened, a series of questions follows any acknowledged failure, is stout with standstill enthusiasm, is a terrible wall dazzling in its menace, crucial in its awakening to all the previous consequences. Cognition is conformity waiting to stir liberation. Redolent is a relationship with antiquarian guarantees. Protective is not protective, and superstitious is a symptom of fancy wine drinking or a little mouse.